Money runs our lives. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean it in a matter-of-fact way. We need money to survive. We need money to enjoy our lives. Everything has a cost. It is what it is. Since we can't escape the capitalist society that we live in, it's important we put ourselves in a position to master our money. This starts with some important money principles everyone should be following. In this episode, I'm breaking down 5 money principles that should be a guiding light in your financial situation. Take your time implementing these principles with the goal of eventually following all 5 of them. Hey there, I'm Rhea Reeves, and over a decade ago, I turned my life around through budgeting. I went from being an overspender deep in credit card debt to being the founder and full-time money coach of City Girl Savings. Now, I help women work towards their dream life and tap into their financial power one budget at a time. I fully believe you can live a life you love with a budget, and I'm living proof. The weekly City Girl Savings podcast focuses on the intersection of money and the City Girl lifestyle. Join me every week along with some special guests as I share my experiences, advice, and guidance on navigating life and money as an experience-loving millennial. Now, if you haven't read the book, The Richest Man in Babylon, I would highly recommend it. I know I've talked about it before on this podcast, but it is such a great book. Oftentimes, when a new client joins my money coaching program, I provide them with a list of books that I suggest they read, and this one is always at the top of the list. It's important that I call it out in this podcast episode because a lot of important money principles are actually drawn from that book. And these principles have been in place since the dawn of time. I will link to a copy of the book in the show notes. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever you get your books. It's a very popular book, but I definitely recommend you check it out. Okay, so let's get into the 5 money principles everyone should follow. The first one is always save a portion of what you earn. So have you heard the saying, pay yourself first? I'm sure you have. It's pretty popular in the finance community, but this principle or this notion of pay yourself first essentially thrives on you putting a certain percentage of money away as soon as you get it. So as soon as your paycheck hits your account, as soon as you receive cash tips or money comes in that you have earned, a percentage of that money should be saved. The typical rule is 10%, but I understand that that's not always possible. It certainly wasn't possible for me early on in my money journey. I think the principle still holds true though. So while 10% may not be realistic for your situation, find a number that is safe for you to put away every time you get paid. I do recommend a percentage, especially if your income fluctuates. So instead of saying $50 a month, say 1% of the money I earn. That usually will work better in your favor, especially if your income fluctuates. But if you want to go with a set number, that works too. If you have no idea where to start with what amount you should be putting away every time you get paid, I recommend you start with your budget. Your budget will be such an important piece of helping you figure out what number is realistic for you and your situation. Remember, your budget should show you what money is coming in, what money is going out, and what's left over. And that leftover amount is what you can allocate to savings and other things, of course. Now, you may have to start with a small amount going into your savings. Like I said, it's totally understandable. I was there myself. That's okay. Every penny counts. It is truly not the amount that matters as much as you building up the consistency of actually putting money away every time you get paid. But eventually, your goal should be able to work up to that 10% number. So saving 10% of whatever you earn. And then the final point I want to make on this principle is the goal is to never touch that savings unless, of course, there's an emergency. You always want to give yourself some funds to fall back on, but you putting money into savings does not mean that you have, money for next week to go buy yourself something nice. The goal of saving this money is to truly build up a nest egg or an emergency fund or some sort of financial security in case something does happen or goes wrong in your situation. The next money principle everyone should follow is never borrow more than you can pay back. Available credit is so dangerous. It gives people this false sense of financial security. And unfortunately, that security comes at a very expensive cost in the form of interest. And yes, I am speaking from my own personal experience. Back in my early 20s, I thought my available credit line meant I had money. I saw it as, well, I have $1,000 limit on this credit card, so I have $1,000 that I can spend on whatever I want. And unfortunately, I didn't quite think about what it meant to actually use that credit line and then to have to pay it back at a cost. So every time I got that monthly bill and the minimum payment kept growing and growing because I kept adding to the balance, it eventually got out of hand, out of control. And unfortunately, this was a hard lesson that I had to learn. But if you can stick to this principle early on and just make it a point to never borrow more than you can pay back, you are going to be in such a good financial spot. But I do want to spend a little more time here because accumulating debt and borrowing money gets such a bad rap, and it's not always a bad thing. I think it's important to understand that you should never borrow more than you can pay back. However, there are instances where you can leverage credit to help you get a new home, buy a big purchase, take care of something while you get your other cash in order. There are instances where it's not a bad thing. And so maybe shedding light with an example will help. So let's say your AC unit goes out in the summertime. And if you live in Texas, like this is a very serious matter. And it's going to cost you $2,000 to fix. You have the money in savings, but there's an option with the AC repair company to finance at 0% interest for 6 months. So instead of forking out the full $2,000 right here and now, which you have the ability to do so, you can keep your cash in your account and essentially pay it over time. Now, you can take the option of finance because first off, you know that you can pay the debt off in 6 months, ideally, or essentially you could pay it off immediately, right? Thanks to your savings. But you can also keep your cash flow and not have to worry about paying the interest. So that's a really good example of taking on credit and debt and it not hurting you. It's actually helping you. So if you're paying 0% in interest, but you keep your savings in a high yield savings account that's yielding 4% interest, you're technically gaining more by keeping your money in your savings account. So I actually did this when I purchased my car. When I got my Lexus, my original intention was to buy the car outright. I was not really planning on financing. I didn't necessarily want to do that. However, I got an opportunity to put 0 down and I had a 0% interest rate. My credit was great. It was during COVID time too. So, I think a lot of dealerships were just trying to sell. So that's exactly what I did. I kept my money in savings and I took the 0% interest financing. I did still end up paying my car off early, but in the time it took me to actually pay my car off, I had money growing in interest. I got to keep my cash flow. I got to allow that money to grow while every month I made payments on my Lexus. I talk a lot more about this in episode 121, how I paid off my dream car. I'm going to link to it in the show notes if you want to hear a little bit more about that particular story. Honesty time. Money management is not rocket science. It just feels that way because we tie our emotions, experiences, and sometimes our self-worth to our money. That needs to change, and I'm on a mission to help drive that change. In my new free masterclass, I'm sharing 3 ways to master your money and budget to see instant results. I'm going to show you how to level up your finances so you can begin to see forward progress with your goals and have something to show for the money you work so hard for. The masterclass is only here for a short time and it's happening soon. So save your spot now by going to citygirlsavings.com/masterclass. I can't wait to see you there. The next money principle everyone should follow is insurance is your form of managing risk. So sometimes I hear people complain about having to pay for insurance, and I think it's because they don't quite understand what insurance really is. Insurance is a form of managing risk, meaning if you were in a car accident, your car insurance would cover the cost of damages or a new car. By having that car insurance, you're managing your financial risk in the case of an accident. People don't like to pay for insurance because no one expects an accident to happen, and that's foolish. The reality is anything can happen at any time. We don't know the future. So instead of seeing insurance as another bill I have to pay, look at it as if something were to happen, and I'm not putting out into the universe that something will happen, but if something were to happen, I know financially I would be okay because I have this insurance. Now, another point I want to make here is I'm not saying that you should constantly be worried or negative or thinking bad things will happen, but the reality is things happen outside of our control. It is inevitable. We, like I said, don't know the future. So knowing that you have the help of insurance to get you through unexpected events financially can really help you avoid being worried about that financial burden. So it's almost like thinking of insurance as a way to cover you financially if something were to go wrong. So you can put that thought on the back burner and not necessarily worry about it because every month you pay your bill for insurance. Now, a majority of the time when we have insurance, nothing will go wrong, right? It's kind of like, well, every single month I pay for this and I've been paying for this for years and years and I've never been in an accident or I've never needed the insurance. The insurance company is winning. That's like best case scenario, right? I mean, of course, we don't want to constantly give money away, but if something were to happen, if something did go wrong, the first person you're going to call is your insurance agent, right? So I want to make sure that this principle really drives home the fact that insurance is your form of managing risk. It's not just another bill that you don't need. It is something that you actually do need to help you if something were to go wrong. The next money principle everyone should follow is more like a life principle because I think this kind of applies across the board, not just necessarily with your money. And it's the principle that good things come to those who work. I am a firm, diehard believer in the notion that nothing worth having comes easy. If you don't have to work for it, you probably don't care as much about it. It's just the way of the world. If you want a life of financial freedom, you have to work for it. And that's not a bad thing. I know and understand that we live in an instant gratification society, but there's value in the grind. There's value in working for something that truly means so much to you. And not to mention, sometimes when you put a little more skin in the game, so you put your time, your money, your energy, your efforts into something, it makes the result of that energy and effort and money and time so much better. So good things come to those who work. Do not be afraid to work hard for the things that you want most out of life. Do not be afraid to do things that may seem a little uncomfortable to get you to that end result that you truly want. I always tell my money coaching clients that they are putting themselves in a position to succeed by working with a coach, by working with me. Not only will they learn and do things that will help them get ahead with their money, but they're instantly creating more opportunities for success just by being in the headspace that comes with working for a coach, right? So it's almost like once you kind of put the stake in the ground, you put your money up, you put your time up, you put your commitment up, you are already putting out into the universe that this is something that you want, that it's worth working for, and good things happen as a result of that. So don't be afraid to work and don't expect things to always come easy. I think the more we want something, potentially the harder it can be for us to achieve that thing. And not harder in that you're going to have obstacles, but harder in that if you really want it, prove it. Do what you need to do to make it happen. Put the work in, put the time in, get uncomfortable, take those risks. All of those things are going to be required for you to have what it is that you truly, truly want. So good things come to those who work for those things. And the final money principle that everyone should follow is money is always available. Now, if you have a scarcity mindset, I definitely understand that this may be a hard principle for you to grasp. And I want you to check out episode 85, Abundance versus Scarcity, for just a much deeper dive in the topic of mindset and abundance and scarcity mindset. I'll link to it in the show notes. But a scarcity mindset means that you think in terms of lack. There's never enough. You can never have what you want. Things will never work out. Nothing goes your way. You can never get ahead. There's always something holding you back. And this is just kind of how you think about your efforts, your life, your money. Kind of everything is just thought of in terms of lack. Now, this principle of money is always available translates to an abundance mindset. And that mindset means that you can always get out there and there's always more money to make. So instead of thinking like there's never enough, your mindset is, wow, there's so much more out there. I need to go get it, right? Like you have this abundance mindset. It's not thinking that there's a lack or there's not enough. It's thinking there's more than enough. There's an abundance and I can go out and get it. And I believe it's possible for myself. In reality, there is not a limited supply of money. There is money flowing in and out of accounts so many times a day. Like there's an endless supply. So if you're constantly thinking in terms of lack and thinking you don't have enough, you need to shift your mindset to one of, I need to tap into this endless supply of money because it's going to help level up my life. And now, of course, just having that mindset shift isn't going to magically put money into your lap. I mean, nothing good comes to those, good things come to those who work, But so you have to be capable of getting out there and making more money available to you. But when you start to live by this mindset of money is always available, you'll find that more and more money makes its way to you. And you put yourself in a position for more and more money to come your way. So mindset is everything. Now, each of the money principles I shared with you today can be implemented as quickly as you want them to be. Some are obviously mindset focused and others are action focused. Whichever principle you don't currently follow, I want you to make it a point to get it set up and put in your life as soon as you're able to. And like I said, all of these principles can be implemented as quickly as you want, and you can always grow and adjust as time goes on. Thank you so much for letting me be the money coach in your ear today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the City Girl Savings Podcast and you feel empowered and motivated to take the next step in the journey to your dream life. Remember, if someone like me, a millennial who loves to travel, new experiences, and iced coffees can live a life they love on a budget, you can too.